Good evening, everyone. It is July 27th, 2021, and I will call this meeting to order and ask the city clerk to please call roll.
Commissioner Galt, Commissioner Guess,
Present.
Commissioner Henderson,
Present.
Commissioner Wilson,
Present.
Mayor Bray.
Present. And we'll ask Commissioner Guest to do the invocation.
Lord God, thank you for the day you've given us. Thank you for the city that we live in. Thank you for each and every person that's here tonight. And we just pray for wisdom, discernment, patience, kindness in every decision that we make. And we know it affects a lot of people. And prepare our hearts for tonight. In Jesus' name I pray.
Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, City Manager, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So we're going to take just a couple of minutes to recognize our city manager, Jim Arndt. This will be his last official meeting as our city manager. He's been with us for 3 years. I met Jim 6 months ago when I took office, and I met him before then, actually. We really hadn't worked together, but we've been working together every day for the last 6 months, and I have a lot of admiration for not only his knowledge of city affairs, but the manner in which he's conducted himself, planning to leave and start his own business. He's hung in there with us every single day and has really conducted himself like he was going to be here for the next 10 years. Which is all that we as a city and our commission could possibly ask for. So I'm very appreciative of that. And in recognition of your your service, I wanted to, we've got you a small token. We're going to have a going away party, but you got to have a plaque to hang on your wall.
Appreciate that.
You know, so, and it says, in recognition of your dedicated service, devotion, and commitment to the city of Paducah, James W. Arndt, City Manager, July 2018, July 2021. And at the bottom it says, be the best, which I think is a phrase that you coined, or
Myself, Pam, and Michelle.
help us coin. Congratulations, and we're sorry to see you go, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
So we will say more farewell Friday.
We will. We have more planned. This is just the beginning.
Oh, you're blushing.
I doubt that.
And it is open to the public. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we'll move to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. The city clerk will read the items recommended for approval. Would any commissioner like an item removed for separate discussion?
No.
We good? Okay, I'll ask the city clerk to read the items recommended for approval.
Approve minutes for the June 17th and 18th, 2021, and July 13th, 2021 City Commission meetings. Receive and file documents, personnel actions, a municipal order authorizing the mayor to execute an interlocal agreement for fire and rescue services between the City of Paducah, Kentucky, and Metropolis, Illinois, to coordinate joint responses to water-related emergencies.
So moved. Second.
Please call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray.
Aye. So now we'll move to the adoption of ordinances. This is the second reading of ordinances. And the first one is, I'll ask the city clerk to read the ordinance recognizing Juneteenth as a National Independence Day.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 78 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance amends Section 78-31 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah to include Juneteenth as a designated holiday for city employees effective January 1st, 2022.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion from, any thoughts from commissioners? It's the second reading. We all good? Okay, please call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. So the next two ordinances, again, they've been previously read, but they are first one's a change order for pump station and then approval of a contract for seal closures on the flood wall. So I'll ask you to read the first one, if you would, please, City Clerk.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to execute change order number 1 with Pace Contracting, LLC, to increase the contract by $121,733.29 for the Pump Station Number 2 Rehabilitation Project. This ordinance is summarized as follows. On August 25th, 2020, the city approved Ordinance 2020-08-8652, authorizing a professional services contract with Pace Contracting, LLC, for construction contract in the amount of $4,500,000 for Pump Station Number 2 Rehabilitation Project. Change order number 1 to this contract with Pace Contracting, LLC is now required due to missing components, damaged materials, fabrication of motor number 5, adjustment nut, and emergency repairs of the 48-inch discharge pipe. This ordinance approves change order number 1 for an increase in the amount of $121,733.29, adjusting the total construction project from $4,500,000 to $4,621,733.29.
So moved.
Second.
So is this where Rick took you and I?
Yes.
So Rick Murphy took city manager and myself out to look at this, where we were going to implement this change order. And there's many people in the city of Paducah that use the Greenway Trail. This happens to be a project that that is being performed really with on the Greenway Trail, and it's why that the Greenway Trail is actually closed. When getting into it, they found a lot more work that had to be done, and I don't think anybody that uses the Greenway Trail is happy about having to go around, me included. But it's necessary. It's important flood wall work that we're doing, and I'm not sure exactly how long it's going to take. It's going to take longer than probably any of us would like for it to. Do we have an estimation of how long it might take, given the change order, Rick?
Mayor Commission, I cannot give you a definite date on that, but there's one thing that I would like to add to that. We have one more location where we have to dig the pipes up, and that's the Anna Balmer field area, where the house is way back in the back. There's a pump station back there. It's got 3 pipes. We're going to have to dig those out too, so that's yet to come. We've not even started that work.
Does that affect the Greenway Trail?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
It's right where the skate park is. As you get up on the Greenway Trail right there at the skate park,
okay,
and
yeah.
then you start heading toward town, there's a pump station back there in the back. Those pipes need to be removed and replaced as well. That's part of the core Phase 2 project that we are partnering with them on. But Pump Station 2, that's a really big one that you're talking about now. And then also the new Pump Station 14 that's behind the smoke shop. So we're sorry for the interruption, but it's absolutely necessary that we do this work.
Is all of the Greenway Trail closed or just that portion?
Just that portion up to the smoke shop.
So
And,
from Noble Park to the smoke shop's open?
And yes. But what I'm sharing is that to come in the next few months, that one nearest the skate park in the Anna Balmer field area back there in the back, we're going to have to remove those pipes. So then it's going to be closed from there back to the skate park. So this interruption is, 75, 80 years in the making. And just to be up front, We were supposed to be done with the flood wall project before the trails were ever built.
Yeah, in reality, I mean, there's sections of the trail still open, but, you know, it's a pretty big interruption, you know, especially if you're on a bike. Now, if you're running, it's a little bit, so it's going to be torn up for a while. And I just thought we, you know, should provide some perspective to citizens so they knew really what was going on, because it sounds like it's going to be a number of months.
Yes, sir. The portion that pays our contractors working on it, Pump Station 2, that's where I'm taking you out there for that. Their target is to be done by the end of October. That's at that location. But that's not going to be true with the Anna
Right.
Bomber location, so it's very difficult for me to give that time frame.
Right. I think it'd be good, you know, at future commission meetings, maybe just to provide an update, you know, on where we are, you know, as we go through the process, because, you know, the Greenway Trail is a very valued asset to this community.
Absolutely,
You know, and
absolutely.
so,
And you wouldn't believe how much I iterate that to the contractor. I'm like going, guys, this flood wall is really important, but, you know, this trail is too. So
Right.
we need you to get done, but we need to have a quality job.
So can you go from downtown toward the smoke shop? Is that section all still open?
Yes, you can go from downtown to the smoke shop and back.
Okay.
But it is interrupted right there.
yeah, if you want to go through, you really have to get off at the
Burnett Street.
at the boat ramp, where you go down to the boat ramp.
You
because-
can go down, I'm sorry, Mayor.
That's all right.
You can go down Burnett Street, go down 6th Street, and then come back on Northview. You can kind of avoid that, but you're actually going through the construction sites when you do it on 6th Street.
I mean, maybe if we just even put out some information about you could go from downtown almost to the smoke shop, that part's still open,
Yes, ma'am.
you know, Noble Park
That's a good idea.
to the smoke shop or to that is open.
We can,
You know,
we can
just
talk to
some-
Pam about exactly, you know, how to communicate what's going on. That
Okay.
might help
Signage.
people.
And we can provide some graphics for that.
Sure.
We still have the rustic area, you're behind Stuart Nelson.
Right.
That's all, you take a left, that's all open, then of course it connects with the county park now too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, so
Of
that would be
course,
some
yes.
good to get some information
Yeah.
out. There are still some trails open.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, thank you, Rick. City Clerk, would you call roll, please?
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, would you read the next ordinance, please?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute professional services agreement with Jim Smith Contracting LLC in the amount of $577,763.16 for the flood wall seal closures project. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance authorizes the mayor to execute the professional services agreement with Jim Smith Contracting LLC on behalf of the City of Paducah to provide professional services for the flood wall seal closure project in the amount of $577,763.16.
So moved.
Second.
Again, second reading. We all good? Okay. City Clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, please read the next ordinance.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with Jim Smith Contracting LLC in the amount of $2,152,000 for the floodwall flapgate project. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance authorizes the mayor to execute the professional services agreement with Jim Smith Contracting LLC on behalf of the city for services related to the floodwall flapgate replacement project in an amount of $2,152,000.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this is the big one. This is the big amount of money that we have to approve to get the flood wall work done, the flap gates. We good?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment, as a local contractor.
Oh.
Yeah, that was.
Very good. Okay, City Clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, at this point, we're going to introduce some new ordinances. We have 4 new ordinances. The first one is an amendment on zoning text. So, City Clerk, would you please read that one?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 126 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance amends Chapter 126 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Kentucky to define and permit cottage homes with certain requirements. These types of homes could be a minimum of 140 square feet and would be permitted in the B1 Convenience and Service Zone and higher intensity zones. Manufactured homes, mobile homes, campers, recreational vehicles, storage buildings, shipping containers, and/or sheds are not considered to be cottage homes. Further, this amendment defines and allows short-term rentals and special event short-term rentals, which are rented less than 30 consecutive days in certain zones. This amendment also allows for the construction of a single-family home on smaller building lot than 8,000 square feet, provided setbacks are met and the floor-to-area ratio is not less than 10%, allows the outdoor sale of food items, vegetables, fruits, and garden implements, allows multifamily structure density to be determined by the Kentucky Building Code in the B1 Convenience and Service Zone and higher intensity zones, allows seasonal fireworks tents in the B3 General Business Zone and in higher intensity zones, and allows only commercial uses in the front 2/3 of the ground floor of buildings in the H1 Historic Commercial Zone.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Josh, tell us what this is all about.
Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, thank you all very much. This has been a text amendment in the works since January of this year, and this is the most comprehensive update to the zoning ordinance in the last 16 years. So tonight, I'm glad to bring it to you all and kind of go over some of the things that's contained within it tonight. The first big ticket thing is short-term rentals. There's 2 types that we're proposing to regulate within the zoning ordinance: a standard short-term rental and a special event short-term rental. The difference between the two is that a short-term rental is a normal type of rental that you would see on a platform like Airbnb, whereas a special event short-term rental can only happen for 7 days at a time for no more than twice a year. Now, because of the low impact of special event short-term rentals, we are proposing them to be everywhere in the city of Paducah, whereas a regular short-term rental, we are looking at that with a little bit more scrutiny. Specifically in the R2, the low-density residential zone, the low and medium-density residential zone, the R3, medium-density residential zone, POP, Planned Office Park, and NSC, which is Neighborhood Services Zone, also known as Fountain Avenue. Those would be approved with a conditional use permit. The Board of Adjustment for most of the zones in the HARC, in the NSZ, can attach conditions to that permit to make sure that a short-term rental would stay within character of the neighborhood. We are proposing short-term rentals to be allowed in the R4 high-density residential zones and in higher intensity zones as a principal permitted use throughout the city. However, we are not proposing them to be in the R1 low-density residential zone. That's the difference between those two. We have devised some literature for people that already are operating a short-term rental within the city limits. And if they come to us and say, hey, we already have this, what do I need to do now? What's my next step? Or if they would like to get one started, planning staff is ready and able to handle those questions at this time. The second thing I would like to introduce tonight is cottage homes, and these are more commonly known as tiny homes. However, the nomenclature is gravitating toward a cottage home type verbiage for those. What we're proposing for those to be is a minimum of 140 square feet to no more than 400 square feet, and to be allowed in the B1 Convenience and Service Zone and in higher intensity zones. These types of homes would have to be constructed in accordance with the Kentucky Building Code on a permanent foundation with a roof of at least a 412 roof pitch with metal or shingles covering it. What we are explicitly not allowing as cottage homes, RVs, campers, sheds, that type of thing. These homes must meet the standards and look like a stick-built or modular home. A developer could do more than one cottage home on a lot, but it does have to meet the density. The minimum density for a cottage home is proposed to be 2,250 square feet. And so as long as that's met, and they have to have a minimum 20% open space on the lot. And that 20% has to be in living ground cover, trees, grass, brush, shrubs, that sort of thing. They do have to submit a site plan to us showing the footprint of the buildings, the parking, the layout, that sort of thing, but they can concurrently submit the architectural plans to fire prevention. That way we're going through as quickly as we can with site permitting and architectural permitting. The other major items to cover tonight is the ability to construct a home on a lot smaller than 8,000 square feet. The reason why there's the 8,000 square feet is because that's the threshold in the R3 and R4 zones. However, there's many lots in the city that were established before 1964, which was the adoption of the zoning ordinance, that are smaller than 8,000 square feet. So, in order for a home to be built there, as of right now, a developer would have to go to the Board of Adjustment and ask for a variance for the size of the home. But we're proposing that as long as the setbacks are met, which is the front, rear, and sides, and the floor area ratio is met of 10%, then they can get a building permit to automatically build on that lot. The reason that the 10% floor to area ratio is mentioned in there is because that is standard across our residential zones. In the R1 zone, the lowest density residential zone, the minimum lot size is 12,000 square feet, which equates to a 1,200 square foot house. In the R2 zone, it's 10,000 square feet minimum lot, which equates to a 1,000 square foot house. So this will make it characteristic of our other zones. And this is particularly useful on the south side, hopefully, because there are many lots over there smaller than that 8,000 square feet. So hopefully that would expand housing choice, which is another commission priority, to give developers location and choice for either rentals or stick-built. We are proposing to allow the outdoor sales of food items, vegetables, lawnmowers, that sort of thing. Many of our retailers, such as Walmart, Home Depot, are already doing this. We've had a policy in the planning department where we have allowed that because commercial greenhouses are allowed by right in that zone. But what this proposed text amendment does is actually codify it within the zoning ordinance to allow that activity by right. We are allowing multifamily structure density to be dictated by the Kentucky Building Code in the B1 zone and above. That's the convenience and service zone, which is our lowest density commercial zone. However, by doing this, it is in accordance with our comprehensive plan as far as getting population up and meeting population density, that sort of thing. And it gives developers more choice and options in what they would like to do with buildings in those zones. For example, the Jeton Schoolhouse. When that was rezoned from R3, medium density residential zone, to B3, general business, that gave them the ability to construct 31 additional dwelling units. So it allows population to grow without being a diminishing factor on city resources. And also, and finally, two things. Seasonal fireworks tents, we're allowing those in the B3 general business zone and above. Those have been happening in Paducah for years, but it's never been specifically addressed till now. And then finally, to allow commercial uses in the front 2/3 of the ground floor in the H1 Historic District. This is around the Market House Square and in the first half block of Broadway next to the river. A developer could do residential in the rear third or in the bottom floor or top floor of those buildings, but the front 2/3 has to be a commercial type use to facilitate an active streetscape. This regulation is already in place in the B2T zone, which is along Broadway from 7th to the river, and this would simply mimic that to make sure that our entire downtown has an active streetscape to go along with it. So with that, I would be glad to answer any questions that you all may have.
Yeah, when I came in, I thought that I was supposed to be meeting with you about something, but it was somebody else.
Right.
So I must have been speaking prophetically, because now I really do need to meet with you. Because what I thought I understood, I'm just totally lost right now. So I'd like to get together at some point so that you can kind of show me, so I can see it, so I can visualize, the B2 and the R2. I mean, I understand what all that is, but I just like to be able to see that. And then you mentioned something about the short-term rentals, and so I was looking for an example of a business who had a short-term rental.
That's typically found on like the platform of Airbnb
Okay.
and VRBO. Right now, there's no regulations at all on those, and those are everywhere in the city, McCracken County, and nationwide.
Okay.
And some localities do have a mechanism to regulate those, but we don't, so that's what we're proposing to do.
So this will allow us to regulate Airbnbs?
Correct.
Do we know how many people, how many Airbnbs there are at any one time in the city?
No, Mayor, I sure don't. I know that there's several going on, but I couldn't tell you an exact
Yeah,
number.
more than several. But,
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
so this would require them to register? Do I understand that correctly?
They would have to get a business license in all types of Airbnbs and short-term rentals. But as far as zoning, that's really going to dictate what they can and can't do. If they are in a R1 zone, they can only be a special event short-term rental. But if they're in a different type of zone, they'll either need to get a conditional use permit or just a business license, depending on where they're at.
So,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no,
So if we regulate these, the Airbnbs, then does that mean that that some businesses that are already in effect will have to change? Will it hurt them any to comply? How does?
It could. We have some information already ready to go to give to people that already have Airbnbs or VRBOs on exactly what they need to do. It'll give them a list of next steps, for example, getting a conditional use permit if needed, or just a business license, and it'll lay that out. And plus, I'm happy to answer the questions that they may have.
And that's not implying that the people that do have Airbnb and VRBOs don't have a business license, because I know
Right.
some
Right,
that
yeah,
do. It's
yeah,
part of their
I know.
rental, they just
Yeah.
decide to rent weekends and
Right.
one day at a
Commissioner, yes,
time
is
rather
right.
than a monthly rent. So
Yeah, there are some out there that do have active business license right now. That is correct.
And so that would mean that there are some out there who do not have business license.
Most likely.
So,
Yeah.
so they're already not in compliance.
Right.
So how does it change, though, someone that has, like, a building, maybe even they live in it, and they rent some parts of that house for Airbnb? How does it change it? It just depends on what zone they're in now?
Yes. And that's the factor to determine how they can conduct that Airbnb.
So
That's
they
correct.
couldn't do a long-term rental, or?
Yeah, they could, yes. If they're in a zone that permits it with a conditional use or a standard B&B or Airbnb, as long as they're listed on the website for Airbnb, they can maintain that. But what's on our end is they have to get a business license and make sure that they're in compliance with the zoning.
How does that work with the transient room tax? I think in Kentucky, aren't they supposed to pay?
Commissioner
transit room
Wilson, you
tax.
are correct, but I'm not educated enough to,
I can give you a
relate
little
that.
bit. I mean, we're not collecting it, on a lot. I don't know how many. And this will give us the opportunity to collect it. Actually, there are some Airbnbs who are sending it to us voluntarily. So this puts everybody on a level playing ground. It also puts the Airbnbs on level playing ground with the hotels. And I would just point out, it's a pass-through.
Mhm.
It's a pass-through to the folks that are renting. So it's,
They just collect it and pass it through?
Correct.
Yeah.
so I think it's, it's something that that we need to do. I'm kind of curious, the language for this, did you look at other ordinances? Kind of how did you come up with, you got a lot of changes going on this one. Where did you come up with it all?
From a variety of sources, Mr. Mayor. We did look at other cities, Nashville, Memphis, St. Joseph, and different cities, and also Bowling Green was a big one for the short-term rentals.
I see.
Oh, I was surprised that there's that many lots that are 8,000 square feet.
Right. It depends on the area of Paducah that you get
I was just
into.
surprised.
but
I mean, that's a
Yeah.
really small lot.
I clicked around on our GIS on the south side, and there's several city-owned lots that are smaller than 8,000 square feet.
That's interesting. I mean,
So the cottage homes could only go in a B1 convenience and service zone area? So
Yes.
what's an example? I hate to put you on the spot, but can you think of one?
Sure. The B1 convenience and service zone is the lowest intensity commercial zone. And they would be allowed in every other commercial zone, which is the B2, B2T, and on up. And those are primarily found, on our main commercial corridors and in those type of areas. We do have some commercial areas that are off a commercial corridor where they could locate, but we do have about a third of the city, if not more, that is in some type of commercial zoning district where they could locate.
But probably not in an established neighborhood, right? Or they
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Correct, because those are mainly going to be in an R1 through an R4 zone if it's strictly residential now typically, so they wouldn't be able to locate there.
Okay. I might need that meeting too.
Yeah. I'm going to have to call a meeting.
That's
No,
a
I
lot.
just- But that's a small lot. 8,000
Yep.
feet is a very small lot.
Maybe we should do, we can, we can vote on the first reading of the ordinance, and then those interested, could meet with Josh, over the next couple of weeks, so it doesn't slow us down, but provides more information.
Yeah, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you all may have.
The one other item I have on that allows the outdoor sale of food items, vegetables, fruits, and garden implements. So that's also in the B1 convenience and service?
Yes.
So it's
and
just that areas?
that and higher intensity zones,
Okay.
correct.
Well, I think we've introduced it tonight, so we can either decide in 2 weeks if we're ready to vote on it or
Yeah.
delay it then. It gives us time to hear. Look, I'm assuming there were reasons why you all have introduced all of these,
Sure.
so.
And also to point out, the Paducah Planning Commission is forwarding a favorable recommendation to
Oh,
this.
they've
body.
already heard all of this?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I
The
didn't
Planning
understand that.
Commission held a public hearing on July 8th and is forwarding the favorable recommendation to you all.
Okay.
One question I have, Josh, that just needs to be addressed, make sure we're thinking through the non-conforming use. So basically, if you have an existing Airbnb that's been doing it for years, would they be considered a non-conforming use?
This would be a new regulation that would come into existence, so they would have a time period to become conforming to whatever the underlying zone is. For example, Bowling Green, they gave theirs, I believe, 60 days to come into compliance, so I would think that we would follow something similar to that.
So at the public, I want to go back to the Planning Commission. They had a meeting, they had a public hearing, and after that, they voted favorably to move this forward to us. Okay.
Yes, yes, Commissioner Wilson, that's correct.
I tell you what, it looks like to me you've done a lot of great work, a lot of great research, and there's a lot of moving parts here.
A lot of
But
moving parts.
I appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, where are we? Would you call roll, please?
We don't need to on this
Oh,
one.
we don't. Oh, this is just the first reading, okay, sorry. I'll get it right eventually. Okay, Josh, you didn't leave, so now I'll ask the city clerk to read the next ordinance we're introducing.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 126 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah related to mobile food vehicles. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance amends Section 126-87, mobile food vehicles of the Paducah Code of Ordinances to define food tents in accordance with the Kentucky Building Code, allowing them as an exemption in the Highway Business District and providing specific guidance for the regulation of food tents in the B2 downtown business zone and in higher intensity zones. This amendment allows mobile food vehicles to operate closer than 100 feet to a brick-and-mortar restaurant with the specific written consent of said restaurants and removes the 14-day time period in which the mobile food vehicle must move. Further, mobile food vehicles are proposed to be located on Broadway between Water Street and North 7th Street, Clarence Gaines Street, 2nd Street, and within 100 feet of residence if a generator is utilized that is 72 decibels or less.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Josh, tell us about this one.
Thank you all. Also, the Planning Commission met on July the 8th, had a public hearing, and they are forwarding a favorable recommendation on this as well to you all. The main item in this text amendment is food tents, and this is stemming from the success that the Convention Center has had at their Food Truck Fridays. We've had people wait as long as 2 hours for food. So personnel at the Convention Center has asked for a little bit of help via zoning to see what they can do as far as food tents to alleviate some of the wait times for over there. So working with our fire prevention department, we have come up with a text amendment that would get them to that goal. So for food tents, we're proposing them to only be allowed as part of a private special event such as the Food Truck Fridays or a block party or something like that, not to where a food tent can just go set up by itself. We're not looking for that to happen. They can't happen by right now in the Highway Business District. We are proposing approvals to be done by the Fire Prevention Department. That's something that they do now, that they look at in accordance with the National Fire Protection Association that allows them to cook underneath the tent if approved by fire prevention, and also separation. Food tents do have to be at least 20 feet from another tent or another structure. There are some changes being proposed to the mobile food vehicle portion of the ordinance to allow them to be within 100 feet of a brick and mortar restaurant with permission from that restaurant, but also they have to get permission from any brick and mortar restaurant within that 100 feet. The General Assembly has removed the 14-day waiting period where food trucks have to move, so we're proposing to remove that from our ordinance to be in compliance. And also, we are proposing that generators could be utilized on a mobile food vehicle on Broadway between 7th and Water Street, as long as they have a generator that is less than 72 decibels. To put that in perspective, 72 decibels is your average household vacuum cleaner. That way, there's not noise concerns with residents that live in the upstairs units or anything like that. We wanted to make sure that even though it is an urban environment, that we keep the noise to a minimum where possible.
You've been busy.
Yeah.
Sure have.
My thought, and I asked the city manager this earlier, how do we ensure that there's fairness? And what I mean by that is, how do we ensure that if John wants to be at a specific spot and they're told no, but Sally can come and be at that spot? How does that work?
Whenever as of right now, there is an application that mobile food vehicles must fill out. Mm-hmm. And as part of that application, they have to tell us where they would like to set up. Mm-hmm. That is part of their approval. And if they list the same spot on Broadway or here at Dolly McNutt Plaza, then I can certainly go ahead and sign off on that.
Okay. So you're saying that you can sign off and give approval for a truck to be somewhere even though the brick and mortar may not want it to be there?
Well, it does have to meet that 100 feet
Right.
of the brick and mortar unless they get the written permission from that restaurant.
Okay.
So I'm going to jump in just for clarification. So 100 feet plus you can sign off on. If it's within 100 feet, it needs to have permission from that restaurant.
Correct.
Okay.
That's
Is that
correct.
where you're worried about the fairness?
Yes, that's what I was just simply wondering, or thinking in my mind that a restaurant owner could say, I don't want you to be in front of my restaurant or near my restaurant, but then they can come back to someone else and say, hey, yeah, go ahead, have at it. And so that's, maybe that's not an issue, but that's kind of how I read it when it says that they have to have a written, basically written permission from the brick and mortar.
Right.
So that's, my mind may be off somewhere where it doesn't need to be, but
Sure. Well, that
That's what's there.
relationship within that 100 feet is going to be strictly between the restaurant owner and the food truck operator to get that worked out, if it's going to be within that 100 feet.
so that's my question. So if it has to be worked out, how do we make sure that everybody is treated fair? How do we work this thing out to say that this brick and mortar can be within this 100 feet, but this brick and mortar won't be within 100 feet? If it needs, or if it has to have permission from the brick and mortar. Maybe I'm
You're
understanding
saying
it.
they can pick and choose.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
saying.
mean, I don't know how you regulate that. I mean, or unless other than through, other ordinances we have, other laws, local ordinances, state laws, especially if it involves some sort of discrimination.
Well, and that's exactly,
That's what the
That's-
conversation I had.
that's exactly what the issue.
I see where
Could
you're
be.
going, but I also see, if I owned a pizza store, I might not want a pizza truck right out in front, but I wouldn't care if there was a hamburger store. I mean, I wouldn't care if it was a hamburger truck.
I mean,
And that's kind
I
of
can work
going
with
that
that.
way too.
okay. I just see this a little
But-
differently, but,
I see where you're coming from, and I'm not saying,
That's the conversation I had with Josh and
Yeah.
Katie today. It was like, we got to make sure we're not arbitrary and capricious on this. So basically, and then the cleanest way to do this is just to open it up and do away with this 100-foot restriction. That takes us out of that. So then they go to Josh, they get the permit, and they're there. But in that case, you could have
Yeah.
the pizza truck right in front of the pizza restaurant.
yeah, and I don't.
I mean, you wouldn't want that. I get
No.
that.
And
I
where
mean,
the
I think the
city,
brick and mortars should have a say.
Yes, I do too.
I don't want them to discriminate. So
Of
if
course.
there's a way that wording could be, that they have pledged that they did not discriminate based on certain different things, other than pizza or hamburger, I mean, and I see, but I think they should, if I were a pizza store, and you're right, they should have a say, because they've invested a lot of
Yes.
money in a brick and mortar business.
And I can certainly see a pizza store saying to a pizza truck, no. But then I am a little concerned that a pizza truck would say to a hamburger place, no, because we're not friends, but I want Shaved
Taco.
Ice place, yeah, to be here because we're friends and whatnot. I mean, I don't mean to be petty, but and I'm not trying to suggest anything about any of our brick and mortar owners, but I am suggesting that people don't always do what you expect, they do what you inspect. And so I just want to take out any possibility of anybody being discriminated against.
Sure.
Did you base that part on language you had gotten from some other communities where it's been working?
this stemmed from a local restaurant here in town that had wanted a food truck to be in their parking lot and couldn't do it because of our regulations. So,
Okay.
since we have the EDC up and going and trying to make downtown more vibrant, we are thinking outside the box here locally to try to incorporate more choices and opportunities for here in downtown.
I'm just, as I think about it, again, I go back to what I said earlier. I mean, we can't, I just don't know how much, we can't regulate good behavior but we can regulate discrimination. And I feel like that we have laws that protect us. But again, we can't regulate bad behavior. So,
I appreciate your work. I just thought I'd throw it out there because that's the first thing that came into my mind when I read through this.
Thank you, Commissioner Henderson, for that
work.
feedback. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
okie dokie. The next ordinance that we're introducing is around mobile food trucks as well. So, City Clerk, would you read that one, please?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 46 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah to create Article 5 related to mobile food vehicles inspections. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance creates Article 5, Mobile Food Vehicle Inspections of Chapter 46, Fire Prevention and Protection of the Paducah Code of Ordinances for the purpose of implementing a fee of $50 for each mobile food vehicle inspection performed by the Paducah Fire Prevention Division for the City of Paducah mobile food vehicles. Further, this ordinance authorizes and empowers the Paducah Fire Prevention Division to perform inspections for mobile food vehicles which operate outside of city limits but within McCracken County as required by the McCracken County Fiscal Court. Said inspections for McCracken County mobile food vehicles shall be performed at a cost of $50. Said inspections shall be valid for 1 calendar year from the date of issuance, and subsequent renewal inspection shall be at a fee of $50 per inspection.
So moved.
Chief? Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
Chief,
Here we go.
you want to tell us about this one?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Yes, I happened to be at the fiscal court meeting the night that they were discussing their ordinance and their attempt to mirror ours, and fire inspections came up. And so that's where the genesis of this came from, is they, as a part of their discussion of their ordinance, they realized they did not have anyone to do the inspections for food trucks and recognized the need to do so. Commissioner Parker, especially because he's operated in the city and he's familiar with some things that can occur out there with the different types of mobile food vehicles that are out there, explosions, bad electrical, just little things. And so they were very supportive of looking to do something, tasked Greg Cannon to come talk to us about doing that. We happy to do it. It seems that it would be pretty simple. We see most of them anyway, and that's the genesis of where the fee came from. And then as a result of this discussion and discussion with the Assistant City Manager, was suggested that we add on the $50 inspection fee for those mobile food vehicles in the city to cover our costs for that as well. And that pretty well summarizes it. Pending your questions.
I don't have any questions. I kind of looked at it before. I thought it seemed fair to me.
Yep.
So,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you. Thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the next ordinance is our remote workers incentive program which is one of the commission's priorities. And we've been working on it a number of months. We got some feedback from Catherine and staff a couple of meetings ago, and so they've been hard at work at trying to get this implemented. So I guess we'll start out by asking you to read the ordinance, please.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance establishing the Remote Workers Incentive Program. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah, Kentucky hereby establishes the City Remote Workers Incentive Program with certain conditions and requirements. In order to be eligible to participate in the City Remote Workers Incentive Program, an applicant employee must be 21 years old or older, be a U.S. citizen, lawful permanent resident, or have other credentials necessary to work in the United States, live at least 100 miles outside of the limits of the City of Paducah at the time of application for their City Remote Workers Incentive Program, work full-time for a company in which all offices are located at least 100 miles outside of the limits of City of Paducah, be able to perform a majority of their employment duties remotely from home office or co-working space located inside the City of Paducah limits, acquire primary residency in the City of Paducah within 3 months of acceptance into the program, agreed to retain primary residence in the City of Paducah for at least 1 year beyond the initial 12-month program, and not be a participant in any other publicly funded program initiative. Individuals accepting accepted into the City Remote Workers Incentive Program may be eligible to receive up to $2,500 reimbursement for expenses associated with relocating to the City of Paducah, up to $70 per month reimbursement for fees associated with provision of internet services for a period of 12 months, and waiver of City of Paducah payroll taxes for 12 months.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor and Honorable Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak with you all this evening. I shared a few weeks ago the Remote Workers Incentive Program just as a discussion so that we could talk about what that looked like. Got your all's feedback, so I wanted to share a little bit more today. So back in January, you all said that this would be, or excuse me, back in March, you all shared that this would be a commission priority for you all, and that you wanted to see a program implemented this year, and then to reevaluate that after we've had it for a full year. So we did make a few tweaks to the original proposed program to lower the required age from 25 to 21. This is just to be more inclusive and to have a wider reach for those remote workers. Additionally, we lowered the goal for this program from 40 remote workers down to 25, and that was just to adhere to the budget to be able to make a wider package for these 25 remote workers so that it's more enticing for them to relocate here. We've also added in from a couple changes on the financial incentives. So we raised the relocation expenses from $1,500 to $2,500 to really try to encompass a little bit more. And then also widening the scope of what relocation expenses would be. That was a question you all raised last time we met. So we are including things such as a down payment on a house if you choose to purchase a house, or renters deposits as well. It's really making it more available to get up to $2,500. And we will require to see proof of all of that, so it will be a reimbursement. Additionally, we changed the internet access from the original $50 a month up to $70. Just doing some more research on what internet access and quality internet access here in Paducah costs, we thought that that was a little more reasonable. All right. So here we have a little bit more about the perks package. We have talked to potential partner organizations and really nailed down who is willing to participate with us. So here we have a few listed, and additionally, after I made this PowerPoint, we also have Carson Center participation on there as well. This is really trying to get them immersed into the community that first 12 months that they're here, figuring out what we offer in our entertainment district, what professional organizations are out there, so they'll get membership at Sprocket with their new expansion, and then also PYP membership for them to be able to network with others in the community. So hopefully they'll stay past that 12-year mark, or 12-month mark, excuse me. Okay, so nothing much has changed with the marketing, but just wanted to share with you all that we are working with an agency that the CVB uses to market our ad materials and then some verbiage there, as well as our digital ad buying for us. This choice came to make sure that we were being cohesive with our branding, so that when these remote workers are researching Paducah, they see that the CVB is tied with the chamber, and we're, the city and the county's right here, so that they can kind of see that across the board. And we also, in that marketing campaign, are using images from local publications as well. So to touch base on our communication strategy, because this also is a priority for you all, we have kept on target with all of the items that we mentioned to you all before. And then following tonight's commission meeting, we will have the second reading of this ordinance on August 12th, which will on August 11th, and then on the 12th, the following day, we will implement the program. On that day, we also will have the City of Paducah webpage. So that you all know, we won't have that active until you all as the commission have approved everything, so that we aren't getting ahead of you all. But with that, I'm going to move on to just discussion and any questions I could answer for you all.
I think it is absolutely phenomenal what you've done.
Great.
My question, however, is it possible that I can move out of the city and be enticed to come back in the city as a remote commissioner?
If only, right? No. That's funny.
It's great. I really appreciate what
Good.
you've
I'm
done.
glad to hear that.
Absolutely.
So I have a question, maybe for city manager. So
Sure.
what if all of a sudden, in 3 months, we had 50 applications? We blew through our budget.
Did expand the budget.
That's what I was going to say. Can we put,
Yeah.
we could put more money into
You
it, couldn't we?
Yeah, it's up to you guys. We have money in the city manager's contingency line item that you can use for economic development purposes or any purposes the board sees fit. So you can definitely.
I mean, it would be a good problem to have. I mean,
Yeah,
I
wonderful
just,
problem to have. If you have 50 people that want to relocate to Paducah,
Yeah.
that's a great day.
That is a great day.
That's good.
So you're working with Lou Hammond?
We are working with Stablemate Creatives. They're out of
Okay.
Lexington.
Out of Lexington, okay. So are they putting together all the marketing packages? Like, it's really more than $2,500 and the $70 per month. When you start adding in
Yes.
all of the other incentives,
Right.
it could be a very, much more attractive financial package.
Yes.
depending
and we
on, sorry.
Nope, I was just going to say we've communicated that to them. So they are going to advertise it as much larger than just $3,000 or
Yeah, and
$35,000.
depending on depending on your salary, I mean, the payroll tax
That's
could be a
right.
really
Yes.
big item.
There's not a
So-
cap on that. So,
So I think,
the first year.
which is a little risky, but still, I'm wondering to Commissioner Wilson's point, the marketing around that concept itself, I think would be important. So we need to make sure
Yeah.
they get that.
absolutely. That's something that we've communicated to them. So we'll stay on it. Make sure that happens.
And I'm glad you brought up that payroll tax because that's a
Yes.
be very attractive to the
Yeah.
incoming workers. And that was actually brought up by the chamber group that
Oh,
you
the
met
young
with
professionals.
about the
Paducah
taxes.
Young Professionals. Mm-hmm. Yes. Any
Okay.
other questions
Any
I
other?
can answer?
Are we good?
Good.
Good for now?
All
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, now we're gonna try to keep rolling here. We got 3 discussion items. We'll start. Assistant City Manager Michelle Smolin will give us an update on our commission priorities and where we are.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Commissioners, City Manager. Earlier this year, the Board of Commissioners adopted 12 priority action items. So this is our quarterly update as of July. And I did want to mention, well, it was at the end. Here we go. All of the information you'll hear tonight is available on our website. You have the full report, and then our communications manager, Pam Spencer, has created individual websites for each, or web pages, I should say, for each action item that has more detailed information. And that's at paducahky.gov/commission priorities. Okay. So starting off with our 911 upgrades and operational funding, I know that the mayor will be talking about this actually following this presentation, but we are in process of developing a memorandum of understanding with the county regarding splitting the capital costs of the 911 system, establishing a new working committee, and then forming a plan to offset our declining revenue source, which is, the landline fees, by January of 2022. We also have our project consultant, Federal Engineering, updating our 911 capital needs and infrastructure cost, and we should have that by mid-August, I believe, is where we've last heard from them. And then I did want to highlight that our police department did receive a radio grant funding for their portable radios of about $300,000, which reduces the overall cost of that project. So we're always looking for grant opportunities. Moving on to the outdoor sports facilities, we also are developing that memorandum of understanding with the city and the county, each contributing $12.5 million towards the capital cost of the facility. including the Sports Commission tourism tax and operating revenues to pay for the remaining capital cost through a bond. We did want to mention that we've talked to the county about the commitment being dependent upon the city and county collaboration with the 911 project. We do have staff, and I believe Commissioner Galt recently attended the Sports Commission meetings to make sure that we have a voice at the table. And then we all are also exploring changes to our city recreational facilities because the project will impact our disc golf and dog park. Regarding housing, we just wanted to highlight a few items here. We recently transferred 2 surplus properties, one for Midtown Alliance and one for Habitat for Humanity, for 2 new houses. We also, Midtown Alliance is also working through 3 new houses over near the Rotary Health Park. The city did give $200,000 to the Dunlap Apartment Project to assist with their roofs. And then we also had a grant and aid request that we funded from Salvation Army to look at a feasibility study for transitional housing in Paducah. And feel free, commissioners, if you'd like to jump in with any additional information or questions at any time.
I'll just make one point. We're planning the groundbreaking for the Dunlap Apartments Teton Schoolhouse project. So more to come on that, but it's coming in the next few weeks. So.
That's right. Excited to see that project get started. Yeah. With annexation, we had 1 annexation in 2021. Our goal is for 6 this calendar year. We have identified additional sites on Hinkleville and Olivet Church Road. And then planning is also researching incentives and working with engineering on different annexation strategies. So still working towards that 6 this calendar year.
And they assure us that we will get there and pass that.
Oh, yeah?
Okay. Downtown, we did get the TIF approved by the state in March, and recently we did commit $3 million to the public facilities portion of the city block project. Of course, most exciting, I think, right now with this item is the cups came in for the Entertainment Destination Center last weekend. So we had, heard downtown was busy and buzzing, and lots of people were out enjoying the new Entertainment Destination Center with their drinks in hand, I guess.
I told Michelle I wanted one of those cups so I could stick it by my plaque.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it would look good hanging on.
And the planning department has planned several, Main Street and planning have planned several happy hours coming up through August. I think it's September and October, where you can actually come out, and there will be special dining and drinks, and then some, the businesses will be staying open later so you can do some shopping and really enjoy the Entertainment Destination Center. And we have had 8 net new businesses in downtown. Our goal is 10, so we are well on our way. And that's just this calendar year. And then finally, we have launched our downtown business survey, so we're in the early stages of collecting that information from our downtown businesses. Communications enhancement, we've been busy. We've launched several new tactics. I didn't list them all out, but we do have a new online marketing platform that our communications manager has implemented, a new online services feature on the website. We also have held 2 media and industry luncheons. We really are trying to make communications a part of our organizational fabric, and so Pam has been involved in all of the high priority projects like the remote workers incentive, the TIF, Southside Rise and Shine, the Entertainment Destination Center. So we're really focusing on making communications a high priority as we're implementing projects. And then, of course, we are working with Public Works on getting, wraps around the solid waste vehicles to highlight different aspects of the city that we're focusing on there, different programs with the city, because those solid waste trucks are out in the neighborhoods and businesses, and so it's a great opportunity to highlight different things happening in the city. With Fire Station 4 in the Parks Building, of course, we'll hear more about that tonight with the Civic Center feasibility study. We are also working with the Senior Center Director to help them find a new location if we move out of that building. And we are reviewing potential property acquisitions for a future Fire Station 4 replacement. So more to come on that. We just heard, to Commissioner Henderson, he's always holding us accountable to these items being on the agenda. So there were a number of these items on the agenda tonight. I don't know if you noticed.
yes, there was.
We just heard remote workers. We'll get to the Civic Center, the memorandums of understanding. So there's a lot of emphasis being placed on these. On the city facility side, we have implemented a new policy for this Facilities Improvement Trust Fund. This will function similar to our fleet fund, where actually this fund will pay for the improvements to our buildings. And we've seeded that with $200,000 in this budget year, and then departments will pay back into that fund so that we have a robust fund available to start marking off big capital projects in our facilities. And then we did have, I believe it was Markham Engineering that gave us our facilities improvement plan. So we are looking through those projects and figuring out how we can get those moving with the funds we have available.
Very nice.
With stormwater, we've recently had a lot of conversations with stormwater. We did designate $4 million from our ARPA funds for these projects. We have worked with Strand and Associates to identify those individual projects. And then we've talked a lot about the Buckner Lane Bridge project, as far as alleviating some stormwater over in that area. And then the South 25th Street and South 24th Street properties we recently acquired to focus on some stormwater retention. With minority inclusion, we are focusing on inclusion training for city employees in September and October. We are also really focusing on implementing inclusive hiring tactics. So we worked with, Commissioner Henderson gave us some great ideas to bring testing for firefighters back locally and actually fund that. So we're removing some barriers for some people in our city who'd want to be firefighters. We're advertising jobs on minority professional associations. And then also most recently with the city manager candidates, we had a diversity panel. So we're really trying to be inclusive in our recruitments to make sure that we have a diverse candidate pool. And then the Paducah Diversity Advisory Board was established and began meeting in May, and I think they've had monthly meetings since then.
Right.
Anything to add? Okay. And finally, on Southside Enhancements, we recently wrapped up 8 Southside Rise and Shine neighborhood beautification event with 6 celebrations. And this really grew out of those 2 town halls where the themes we heard were they wanted to see action and beautification. So this was a first step in those longer term strategies around economic development and neighborhood enhancements. And one of the feedback we really heard from those celebrations was the residents really appreciated the opportunity to have the dumpsters out for large items. And just through that first month, we did collect 45 tons of solid waste. Public Works said they were emptying the dumpsters 2 and 3 times a week. So we're very proud of that kind of spruce up effort. And we'll be getting together internally with that visioning session to see where we move for those longer term goals that we have for the South Side.
Right.
Okay. We did put in here the bond proceeds. These are the 6 projects that were identified initially as eligible for use of bond proceeds. We've talked about them all. The city manager and I were reviewing this before the meeting, and all of these have been in recent discussions. I feel like we're moving closer towards some of those decisions of how to allocate the bond proceeds. So that's what I have for you tonight.
I just got literal goosebumps.
I know, it's some amazing work.
There's a lot of good work going on.
We've accomplished a lot.
I think where we hit a home run was in our initial strategy session, when we narrowed our scope down to these 12 priorities. And I feel like we're hitting on all of them, in one way or the other. We're talking about them every meeting. We're focused on them. I've had some other ideas on things that I'd like for us to do, but I'd put them all on the back burner because we really need to stay focused on this. This is what we decided on, and we'll have plenty of time for discussions of that in the future. But so, and I appreciate, Michelle, you putting all this, you and Jim putting all this together and helping us hold ourselves accountable. So it's a great help to us.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. We're looking at more and more of our action forms, and then on that question that says, do these align with city priorities, I'm seeing more and more, yes, 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 yes. So that's good. So appreciate you so much.
I give you guys credit as the board for,
Yes.
staying true to the priorities that you guys adopted.
Yeah.
And that really allows Michelle and the team to go to work for you and turn your vision into reality. If you guys stay aligned to what you tell us to do, we'll get it done for you. I don't want any more, but we'll get it done. You have a good team.
Yes, we do. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, I want to just give everybody an update a little bit on the 911 and the outdoor sports complex. We're working on memorandums of understanding on both of those with the county. It's progressing. I think we're pretty much there with 911. They have suggested one change to move from, I'll just give everybody a heads up, to move from January 1st, 2022 to February 1st, 30 days. I didn't really have a problem with that, but, you guys can think about that. And, I mean, because it's going to take a while before we get the information back from federal engineering anyway. So that's one slight change to that. And then as far as the outdoor sports complex, we're just working through a couple of language adjustments on the MOU, and my expectations will be we'll be able to introduce them and talk about them in their entirety 2 weeks from now at our next meeting.
Will you get those out to us?
Absolutely. Yeah, we will not. Yeah, I will not ask you to come to the meeting without having seen them.
Hope not.
Promise. Questions, thoughts? Okay, we'll move to also an item that's been it's gotten a lot of attention, and that's the Robert Cherry Civic Center and the repurposing of that Civic Center that that we're talking about doing, and so I'll turn it over to City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lindsay, if you can pull them up for us.
Which one would you like first?
Let's go ahead and just do the scope of work real fast. And just kind of stroll down through there. So basically what you have in front of you is the completion of the feasibility study. We engaged PFGW to do the feasibility study for us, and really going back in and transforming the Civic Center into not only just a community center, but also a community center in combination with our administrative Parks and Rec Department. So basically bringing those employees, that team out of the H.C. Mathis building over into the current Civic Center, but actually going in and modifying that building. We guys talked about this before several months ago during the retreat. The anticipated cost was thrown out, but was right at, you can go down to the cost if you want. The anticipated costs were thrown out at $600,000. After the feasibility study, that number of course changed to $1.1 million. I did share this with the board earlier today. Really though, it's not out of line, it's not out of order. I was not surprised by that, because it really takes a more in-depth approach. When we looked at the $600,000, we were looking at just some improvements inside to kind of put the Parks Department in there. Almost like a makeshift type of thing. We can make it work type of thing. This here is actually going to give us a better product for our community to be proud of. We're going to be able to go in and kind of update the inside as well as the outside. Do some structural work that was identified in the Markham Engineering Report when we did the facility needs assessment. Really conquer those issues while making these changes. And the exciting thing to me is that that 1.1 million, you're going to have your admin team for parks over in this facility, and really have a meeting place where the community can be proud of in that facility. And then of course, really at 1.1 million, compare that to $900,000 a year we pay for utilities at our current facility. So it's almost like you pay one time 1.1 compared to 900,000 year after year after year after year for utilities. So it's going to be a tremendous return on our investment. And if you want to pick up the next slide there. And Jeff with PFGW is here to kind of walk us through this. This is kind of the floor plan, just a conceptual floor plan that the feasibility study kind of designed it to. Jeff, you want to come on up? you can kind of walk us through that. But one thing I want to just share with the group, I think there was some misunderstanding in the public about, hey, you're taking away our meeting space, and that's not the case at all. What we basically done was we repurposed the facility where we have our admin team in 24% of the building, and 76% of the building is still for public assembly. And in fact, they're going to be it's going to be an improved public assembly area, improved restroom facilities. So Jeff, you want to walk us through that?
Yes, sir. Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, thank you for this opportunity. We met, of course, all of this stems from the April 2020 facilities assessment that Markham Engineering completed. We were part of that team, and as has been touched on several times tonight, that identified needs of 14 buildings within the city that the city owns, needs that were more imminent, in the 1 to 3 year range, and then needs that were in a 4 to 10 year range. As you mentioned, Mr. Arndt, that the Robert Cherry Civic Center, and identified in that report, it was about $600,000 worth of needs to upgrade that facility, to bring it up to code, to make it a better facility. What that didn't address was moving Parks Department into this. So this additional $500,000 that gets us to the $1.1 million is a totally different scope of work than what we had addressed in that facilities assessment. So I just wanted to make that clear that the cost didn't escalate by $500,000 because it could or because of COVID. As we know, costs have increased. The scope changed. And so what we did, and we met with Amy Clark. This was something that Amy, the Parks Director, called us on and met with us on. We had a meeting with her to discuss programming needs of the Parks Department, how many offices, meeting spaces, just staff areas that they needed, and what they could use to work more efficiently as a Parks Department. We took into account the facilities assessment from 2020 to identify the needs that we identified about a year and a half ago, to see how those have changed over time and how we can incorporate those needs that were identified into this. And so what you see here in this feasibility study is a combination of that facilities assessment and this new scope of work that is requested by Amy and the Parks Department. And the rumors, I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and somebody said that the Cherry Civic Center was going away. And I was like, hang on, it's not. And so I was able to educate some folks. What our attempt here is to make this building better. This building, when I was a senior at Tillman in '94, this was where my prom was. I didn't go to it, but it was here. And so this building holds a special place in the hearts of Paducah citizens for decades. It was built in the early 1950s. And so this is a centerpiece of Paducah's cultural life for 70 years now. And so we treat that as such. We want to honor its past while preserving it for future generations. So a lot of what we've done here is we've tried to make the footprint of the parks offices as small and efficient as possible. We have carved out about 2,200 square feet of approximately 6,000 square feet in that large assembly room for the parks offices. We did that at the back of the building. We want to maintain the character of that front entry off Park Avenue to where you walk in, your experience there is not changed when you walk in the front doors. You still walk into the lobby, you walk around the wall, and there's the large space. So we try to preserve that as much as possible. We've created on the which would be the west end of the building facing up, that rear entrance to the parks offices. That would be their new main entrance from the parking lot, the large parking lot there adjacent to the tennis courts. And then we've added, I think, 7 offices and 3 workstations as requested by Amy. We've added a small break area, a small work center for copier, assembling of Parks Department literature that goes out, registration forms, things like that. A conference room that would seat 12 to 14, a restroom for them to use, and then some storage areas, IT closet, just things that were critical for them to function as a parks department. The Other side of that space is really just finish upgrades. We want to put new flooring in. We've identified new lighting, enclosing the table and chair storage on that top left corner there to hide some of that, because that is a kind of an unsightly thing to see all the chairs and tables stacked in that corner. This would be an upgrade to the kitchen. As much as the wood paneling in there is retro, it's unsightly and flammable and doesn't meet current building codes. So we want to replace some finishes, upgrade the kitchen to be more of a catering kitchen, refrigerator, hand sink, prep sink, and an ice machine. And that would be about it. New casework. The restrooms are generally, the number of fixtures meets code, especially as we've reduced the capacity of that gathering space slightly. So we still meet code with the number of fixtures. We just want to improve that in those restrooms, dress those up a little bit. New partitions. We will have to add one sink to each restroom for a total of 3 per restroom, and that just gives a better experience for the users of this building. There will be some upgrades to the exterior. Of course, we're planning for new windows throughout. The original windows, the steel hopper type windows from 1950, single pane glass, very inefficient as far as energy needs are concerned. And so we're making those upgrades as well. Some egress upgrades. Some of these egress doors, there's a step as you go out. The accessibility ramp in the front is a little small, and so we want to make some upgrades there. But this is just an initial scope of work, taking into account the facility assessment, meetings with Amy, and then our own review of the site conditions within the last couple of weeks. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
So how does all of this translate into the banquet hall? How does that translate into how many people can be seated in there?
Thank you. I wrote that down earlier and completely didn't look at it.
I can't see it.
There are indicated there, the circles you see in that space are 10 seat tables. There are 18 tables within that space. So you're talking conservatively 180 people around round tables. Now you take the tables out, set up chairs only. That number increases. The total occupant load allowed by building code for chairs only for this space escapes me. But we're not too far. The current occupant load for this facility is about 500 allowed by building code, and we're going to be slightly lower than that. I don't know that I would want to be in there with 500 people. That would be a worst case scenario. Building code designs that occupant load for a worst case scenario, so that in the event of an emergency, they would be able to get out. But we're decreasing that occupant load a little bit, but not by much. So there's still, I think, adequate space for most events.
So what is the occupancy now for banquets and things of that nature?
Commissioner Henderson, I cannot remember. It's posted on the wall there. I've got a picture of it, but it's on my computer at the office. I took it off my phone a couple of weeks ago. And I can't remember. It's classified as an A3 occupancy, but I can't remember that occupant load off the top of my head. I apologize.
Yeah, that's no fun. Yeah, I see the 180, but it's real small. I thought it was a piece of smudge or something.
Well, this drawing printed out at
counted
normal
it.
size would be 24 by 36, and so when you get it down to 11 by 17, I have trouble reading it.
Can you zoom it in a little bit, Lindsay?
Oh, I don't need to see it. No, I see it. Now that I know what it is, I see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think the number you're seeing there is a room number. All the rooms are numbered, just so we can say assembly space 109 or whatever. So
To find out, I did the same thing he said. I counted the tables.
I just do. I got to see that.
Oh, okay. I'm the only one that didn't.
So it's going to be less. I mean, the capacity is going to be less than it is, that has been in the past, but it's going to be much improved space.
Yes.
up to code, and it will continue on as a place where people can assemble. When we complete the project. So.
And one thing that this scope of work included as well was some improvements to the parking lot. The parking lot at night is very dark, and so we've included in the scope of work budget money for exterior lighting for not only the building but the parking lot as well to make that safer. One thing we didn't include in this was restriping or redesigning the parking lot. We figured that was something that could be discussed later if this project proceeds forward.
And design, which will be our next step. Design is not part of that total budget numbers.
Yep.
And of course, that's an estimate cost. It'll be competitively bid, so it could come in higher or lower.
Yeah, these are very high level. As I've mentioned on the sports complex, these are very preliminary numbers, usually estimated really high to try to account for market fluctuations, things like that. There's a lot of unknowns at this point. These are just very conceptual numbers.
So here's a question. If we give the go-ahead, I haven't really asked this question before now, but how quickly could we get the project done? Does anybody think?
I would say within, this is a dangerous question and a dangerous answer.
Continue to be conservative.
I'm hoping my partners at work are listening. I would have to go back and check our workload, but I would say within 4 to 6 months we could be ready for bidding, if not sooner. It's a relatively, it's a small project. A lot of the work's inside, so it could be done during the winter months. But I would say within 4 to 6 months we could be bidding the project, and then maybe another 6 to 8 months for construction. But I could go back and sharpen the pencil on that one.
So basically then, if we continue to make progress and do what we can on our side, theoretically, we could be reopened by July, August of next year.
Yes.
About a year from now.
That's
Year plus
completely
one.
feasible. Yes, sir.
In order to do that, we're going to have to get going. So, well, I wanted to open it up for discussion because, the next step is to approve a design and allocate, some bond money, for this project. It is one of our priorities, but I thought we needed to talk about it openly and get prepared for the next steps. Further discussion?
I'm good.
I think it's needed.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Thank you for coming.
Jeff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, now we'll move to comments. Comments from the city manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to say that I know we have executive session. I'll keep it brief, but 17 years of these meetings, and this is my last one. So I was thinking about that today, about how my first one went, and I had the city clerk come to me through the agenda from 2 weeks before on my desk and say, "It's your job now. You do the agendas." So that's how I started, and then here you come to, you fast forward 17 years, and you work with a dynamic city clerk who does all this good stuff and makes my job easier. So thank you very much for that. But I really have appreciated the working with this commission, this board, this body, and seeing you guys just continue to stay aligned. I know I preach it all the time, alignment, 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 but we could do so much when we're aligned, and you guys are just making magic happen. I give you kudos for that, and I'm so confident, and Darren Jordan, my replacement, you picked a good one. I think he's going to just continue to help you guys continue to move forward. So thank you very much for believing in me, Commissioner Wilson, when you brought me here, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Comments from any other commissioners?
I'm saving mine for Friday.
Okay.
Because every time I start to talk about it, I kind of get I'm very emotional. So we'll wait. But it's been great 3 years with you.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
We good?
Enjoyed 6 months. Enjoyed my weekly phone calls.
Yeah.
Keeps us informed. Do your job. Appreciate it. Makes our job easier.
Right.
Keeping us.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I've looked forward to that's the highlight of my week is my Tuesday at 9 o'clock.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
I said my Monday at 3. So and you were the one that insisted that we have those meetings with you, and I think it's made us all better commissioners.
Yes,
So
yes.
again, I can't talk about it. I've just been blocking the fact that you're leaving out of my mind, not to think about it yet. So if you weren't leaving to go be closer to family, I'd just be really mad. But I understand the need or the want to be with family.
Appreciate that. Thank
Of
you.
course. Okay, we're going to move into executive session, and I'd ask the city clerk to call roll.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to go into closed session for discussion of matters pertaining to the following topics: proposed or pending litigation as permitted by KRS 61-8101C, and a specific proposal by a business entity where public discussion of the subject matter would jeopardize the location, retention, expansion, or upgrading of a business entity as permitted by KRS 61-8101G.
So moved.
Second.
Please call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye.